You've probably seen the sign up there. If you're planning on speaking tonight, please sign in. And, yeah. Yeah, if you decide to speak later on and haven't signed in, we'll have to fine you, and that money will go to the Planning and Zoning Pizza Fund or something there. So.
We might need it next month.
Yeah, exactly.
Are we on the roll?
Lights on? Lights on?
No,
Lights are on, yep.
now it is.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, but nobody's home.
Yeah, honestly, I feel that.
That's right. Nobody.
Tonight I might.
Just jumped out of the shower.
You gotta be that.
All right, it's the bewitching hour, so we'll get started for the September meeting of Georgetown-Scott County Planning Commission. First item is approval of August invoices. I have one question, looking over those. On the, should have circled it. I don't see it at all now. Oh, here it is. Down under advertising and IT, it's got Studio 46 Media. So we don't pay them monthly? Do you know offhand?
I think it's
Quarterly?
quarterly.
Yeah. Okay,
Or whenever we get an invoice.
all right. Whenever they decide to bill us?
They bill us.
Okay, all right. So I'll take a motion to approve the budget. So moved. Got,
I'll second.
Garrett. And second by Ms. Singer. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition likewise? And that passed. Next item is approval of the August 8th minutes. Did anyone see any corrections that needed to be made from last month's meeting? I will take a motion to approve that.
Motion to approve.
Mr. Smith, the motion.
Second.
Who's that, Mr. Jesse, or Mr. Stone? Mr. Stone. Second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And approval of the September agenda that you have in front of you.
I'll make a motion for approval.
You will?
I will.
I'll second it.
Ain't nobody crying, I don't have a voice, I know. It'll like shave at least 20 minutes off of me.
I have a motion and a second for approval of the, of this month's agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And have we had any postponements or withdrawals?
I'll put two things on
Yes, we have two postponements. So we have the CMA 2024-31, the Kentucky Bluegrass Experience Resort. This is a continued postponement. They requested this in August for the September and they requested this in July for the August and September meetings, so they're scheduled for the October 10th meeting.
For next month.
And same thing with the ZMA 2024-35, the Georgetown Commons property. They've also requested postponement to October.
All right, so if you are here to hear the Kentucky Bluegrass Experience RV Resort or Georgetown Commons, we're not going to hear those tonight, and at all. All right. Are any items on tonight's agenda eligible for consent?
Yes, we have one item, the FSP 2024-36 urban property.
Okay. That is final subdivision plat to divide one 5.225 acre parcel from a 37.5 .03 acre parcel, leaving 31.805 remainder located at excuse me, 1092 Locust Fork Road. That is consent eligible. Is there anyone here that is opposed to that or would like to hear it? All right, seeing none, I will take a motion for approval of that property.
I'll make a motion, we approve FFC 2024-36.
I have a motion.
Second.
Who's that, David? All right, I have a motion and a second to approve the Thurman property. Ms. Singer,
Yes.
Ms. Canfield,
Yes.
Mr. Jesse,
Yes.
Mr. Vest,
Yes.
Mr. Stone,
Yes.
Mr. Garrett,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. If the representative will come up and see Mr. Perkins up there, we'll get you squared away. Let him finish that real quickly. All right, anyone that is, that has signed in to speak tonight, if you will stand and Mr. Perkins will swear you in at this time.
You swear affirm the statement you make tonight to be the truth to the best of your information and belief.
I do.
Thank you.
Okay. First item on the agenda is 2024-29 tee times.
Okay, this is a preliminary development plan over at 1040 Paris Pike, East Main, just outside of downtown proper. Previously, I believe it was Top Gun Auto Sales. There is a pre-existing building on site. These folks are proposing to put a 1,700 square foot addition on the right-hand side of the building for use as a barber shop and indoor golf simulator. We are in a B2 zone over there, so the use is appropriate. Site's just under 1/3 of an acre, 2,800 square foot total building area, which is within our limitations of building coverage in the zone. Usually we allow 50%. This is just under 22%. As you'll see, all their parking meets or exceeds the requirements by the barber shop and/or driving range metrics. They're only required to have 8 spaces. They're supplying 15. They have both Georgetown water and sewer over there. Point of note, and we'll talk about that to some degree, is 460 there, of course, is a state-maintained road. Here's the site overhead. It's adjacent to what was MLS Power Sports, or currently still is, soon to be Amen House campus, again, just outside of downtown proper on East Main, Paris Pike. Whoop. Sorry, our computer's in there tonight. Again, over here in the B2 zone, use is appropriate for the zone. Here is an overall view of the development plan. Just a moment, I'll zoom in for you so you can see it more clearly. There we go. In the green shaded here, you see all their proposed landscaping. Again, final landscape plans are due with the final, so as of now, all their proposals meet the requirements. We'll probably see a few adjustments here and there before final, but we'll take care of that in office, but as of now, they are more than compliant. There in the magenta or pink color on the right-hand side of the existing building is the proposed addition. The caveat to this application is in the 60s, the Kentucky State Transportation Cabinet proposed an expansion and widening of 460 here at this point. The project has not occurred or been enacted on as of yet. However, the state still does hold the rights to an expanded right-of-way on the property. The right-of-way extends essentially all the way to the front of the existing building, encompassing all the currently established parking. Essentially, it's a non-conforming allowable use as it's been there since, as long as we can remember. The applicant has had multiple conversations with the State Transportation Cabinet. acknowledging their use and their intentions, and as of yet, the state has no issue with them continuing the use of the property, the portion of the property as parking. However, of course, the state still reserves their rights to work within or proceed with that project as they see fit. Essentially, the applicant is continuing at their peril, acknowledging the rights of the state. To go along with that, there is a 50-foot building setback line that accompanies the right-of-way, as such making the existing building as well as the proposed expansion within the building setback. As such, the entirety of the expansion is subject to a variance upon approval for construction and development within the building setback. So that's essentially the hinge point for this application. Again, all the parking they propose is more than compliant or exceeds. Up there to the top right of the proposed expansion, the entirety of the site to the north and the east topologically does slope off greatly towards the property lines. That corner of the proposed expansion will need some extensive grading to get it up. And as such, and we'll talk about it, I spoke with the chair and Mr. Perkins to begin with, and the applicant will speak with it to it as well. They're proposing storing some material to use for grading that's coming off an adjacent site, what's going to become the Amen House. They're removing and moving a great deal of material over there. The applicant is proposing that they be allowed to store and then eventually use material from that site on this site. However, that would not be in compliance with condition number 8 of approval, as we usually don't allow, grading or operations that, are subject to, land disturbance as a result of that condition until final approval is reached. However, upon your all's deliberation and consideration, so to speak, we can amend that condition of approval if you see fit. The applicant can speak more to that. Just more briefly about the site, as it does drop off greatly towards the rear and east of the property. Most of their stormwater retention at this time is proposed to be in the top right corner there of the plat. However, again, all those plans are subject to final approval by Mr. Krebs. So as of now, that's really all I have to speak about the application itself, unless you all have any further questions. Again, it is not consent eligible, of course, due to the variance request to operate and construct within the setback limitations due to the expanded right-of-way. Overall, we are recommending approval, however. So if y'all have any more questions for me, I'd be glad to entertain them. Otherwise, I believe Mr. Charlie of Thoroughbred Engineering is here, as well as the applicant.
Have you heard anything from the neighbors that are about adjoins that property?
Not directly adjoining, but I did have one phone call from a lady that lives not East Main, but another street over. Is it maybe Maddox, I believe? Miss Eads. She called asking some questions about that property and other things going on in the area. She's up in age and essentially homebound, so stuck a copy of the development plan and a little letter in the mail, sent it off to her. Haven't heard anything since, but she was mostly just curious. As far as other neighbors, I personally haven't taken any phone calls or emails. Nobody on staff has told me that I've heard about anything else either.
How about these ladies that just walked in?
Well, we will absolutely give them their time to speak in just a moment.
Yeah, we'll let the owners
Thank you.
speak first there.
Good evening. My name is Charlie Hall with Thoroughbred. We are in agreement with all of the conditions of approval, except for number 8 that was briefly talked about. I'll get to that in a second. Just a little bit more information on the KYTC right-of-way. We've talked to Robert Baker at KYTC. Currently, they want to hold that right-of-way for potential pedestrian projects. They didn't have a ton of information on it, and it did not seem like something that would happen in the near future, but it was not something that they wanted to sell back to the applicant or give up. So we do know at some point if they do decide to use that, it's land that we can't use, but they're not looking to restrict the use of the parking lot at this time. And then moving on to condition number 8 that was briefly talked about. It's kind of a handshake deal with Amen House next door that there's soil the client would like to use. Condition number 8 says that you can't really do that without the grading permit or land disturbance permit. So what we're asking for permission is we're not gonna use that for necessarily grading or to fill anything yet, but just to temporarily store that soil on site for when that FDP is approved and the grading permit is approved. It would be there instead of having to haul that somewhere off site to haul it back and the resources and costs that would take. And I do have a couple plans I can give you of where that temporary soil storage area might be. There'd be silt fence behind it, so that it wouldn't fall down that steep slope in the back. So I can hand those out, and if you have any further questions, I can try to answer those.
Charlie, are you all going to erect that silt fence, or are the contractors from Amen House be erecting that?
That's a good question.
Yeah, we'll do whatever, not something I've done before, but, we'll do whatever's necessary. We'll do whatever the correct way is, we'll do it however you all.
My only concern was with them moving dirt onto your property, they may not be as aware of what needs to be done as you all do. So what we're saying is we would hold you responsible for getting that silt fence up before they start moving any dirt over there.
Correct.
Whether they do it or you do it, you need to let them know about it there.
Correct. When I spoke to them, they told me that was the importance of the silt fence. It would be the people that are currently moving the dirt for the Amen House. When I initially called about that pile of dirt, it was spoken for, then it became available, so we kind of have a handshake deal. Logistically and from a resource perspective, it would be a great benefit for us to be able to use that dirt.
Sure.
It's a pretty substantial amount of dirt that we could use for grading on the side.
Okay.
From aesthetics and a safety perspective.
So am I looking right, so this temporary soil storage area is underneath the new part?
So the soil would be stored there before any construction would take place. That addition's not there currently. That's where the soil would be, and then once the FDP is approved and they start construction, they would use that soil for their grading and for the foundation.
And so where will it eventually go to? That hillside?
Most of it would be on the hillside and then flattening out what they might need underneath the addition.
Gotcha. All right.
And there is one house close to that, right?
Yeah.
But, and am I right, all this was built on fill anyway? Yeah, I mean, this is how all this started. I mean, it's by bringing in fill, just exactly like that.
Yeah, right on that.
Yeah, yep, that's what I thought.
Before you get to Old Purple Street.
Yeah,
I remember seeing a house close there somewhere.
that's right.
Yeah.
Got an idea.
Any other questions? Do we have any questions from the audience for either the staff or the owners or engineers or their representative? Yes, ma'am.
I have received this letter, it says T Times LLC,
Good.
and, there's an addition in an existing building located on 1040 Paris Pike. I'm in the back, of course, Paris
Ye-
Pike.
Yes, ma'am. Could you come up here and give your name so we can have it on the record, please?
Yeah, I could come to you about that.
All right, that'll be fine.
I think they do this on some TV shows.
Okay, now what else you need to know?
Just state your name and your address, please.
Okay, Mary McIntyre,
All right?
718 Bourbon Street, Georgetown, Kentucky. 40324. I just want to find out exactly what's going on with this T. This 1040 and the Paris Pike deal with T Times LLC. What is that?
That is what we're talking about tonight. They own the existing building that used to be Top Gun Automotive, and they're gonna add a building to the side of it,
Okay,
just to expand it. It's gonna be both a barber shop and a simulated driving range for golf.
okay. Well, that won't affect me too much. so. Okay, that's all.
Does that answer your question, Ms. McIntyre?
You might want to show her this drawing.
Sure.
It gives a pretty good aerial of it.
All right, while Rhett is doing that, is there any other questions?
Ms. Tilton may have a question.
Huh?
Mrs.
Yeah,
Tilton.
I'm gonna wait on her. Rhett, if you want to answer those questions for her.
Yes. Absolutely. Ma'am? No, ma'am. If you don't mind, I'll answer from up here, okay? They had a question about traffic flow.
Uh-huh.
This use does not exceed the 100 trips per peak hour is generally when we do a traffic study. This falls way below that. And if I can kind of allude to the very small parking requirements and, you know, the use, if you can imagine how much traffic a barber shop itself may generate, that's what we expect from this use here. If the applicants need to speak more about that, I'm sure they'd be glad to.
I don't have anything to say, it doesn't look like it's gonna affect for the upgrade street at 700, but where Martin Luther King Street comes down.
No, ma'am, there's no expansion past this property. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. Just it's essentially, not to diminish it, but it's essentially a room addition onto that existing building. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And just a point of clarification as well, I failed to specify a specific distance of, the setback and the variance. But as you all can see, the existing building essentially touches and runs right along, what would be, so it's almost a zero lot line scenario. So any further expansion will increase back from that line. If you all need me to establish a distance with the applicant to amend, because there was not a call, admittedly, from the right-of-way to the existing expansion, as it tapers out. If yourself or the commission in-house deems that necessary, we can do that, but it's essentially a 0-foot allowance.
Okay.
Elise, would you like, I'm sorry.
Any other questions for Rhett?
Did I understand you say maybe that the state holds a right to a certain amount of footage before you get to the railroad tunnel?
Everything is, well, I don't know the extent of that project study itself. The applicant, I believe, has done some research into it. Mr. Krebs may be able to speak to it as well. But as far as the property in question, state holds the rights, everything from, the roadbed of 460 up to that orangish dotted line you see there across that I've highlighted.
Which is much wider than the tunnel going
Yes.
under the railroad.
That's the
Yes,
real
and-
problem.
That's probably why they have not
basically,
enacted
they-
on that project, and it's double bottlenecked essentially,
there is
between the railroad bridge and all of a sudden you hit the curve at
There is a plan
Bourbon
on
and
paper.
East Main and all that.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
It's been on paper for 20 years.
Since 1960.
The 60s, yeah.
Yeah.
Lexington did just get their stuff,
Yeah.
at no cost to the city.
Okay.
Yeah, so to expand the right-of-way for the road would also have to involve the railroad, yeah. And the owners realize that if the highway ever decides to act upon that they'll lose their property and.
Yes, I've got a documented email chain between the engineering firm as well as the transportation cabinet, essentially outlining that
Okay.
it is what it is, it's at your peril,
Yeah.
so.
All right, are there any other questions?
How are you
I
going
can't
to
hear you. What?
resolve about the dirt and all that's going to be amended in the,
Yeah, on number 8 there, yeah. If there are no oppositions from the commission here about them moving the dirt on there, we'll accept it, number 8.
What's,
Should 8 be amended to say Are you recommending 8 is amended to 7?
Yes, that they can put some dirt on there
Store
now,
dirt.
store
Store
dirt.
dirt.
Since
With
I've
the-
already written this out, how about I suggest what we say?
Perfect, Charlie.
At the end of 8, as it's written, except, may store material from a mint house site.
There you
And
go.
I'll add that for later use.
Yeah,
But shouldn't there also be something in there about protecting the runoff from the,
yeah.
that needs to be added?
They're required to do that
Yeah.
anyway, they've got
It
material.
needs to be added into that.
All right.
Two.
Plus silk fences and whatever.
That's correct.
Yes, okay, I'll do that.
Aren't you paid tonight, Charlie?
Yeah. Mr. Perkins, I'm gonna,
And
if
don't
you've
you
got
need-
some more ink in your pen,
And because, Charlie, because there was such a question about who was actually going to be responsible for that, don't you think we should designate who's responsible for that, so there's no ambiguity about that?
Well, they've already said they were.
Okay, let's
We'll
make
take
sure that
I
says
mean,
that.
the applicant's responsible, even though the others bring it over to their property, it's their property, they're responsible for silk fences, cleanup, whatever, is attended to that.
Okay.
and Mr. Perkins, the applicant has stated that the distance from the setback at the widest point there will be 5 feet. If you'd like to include that in language for terms of approval for the variance.
I'm sorry, say that again?
The setback distance at the maximum would be 5 feet between that and the right-of-way,
That corner.
if it matters to you in the language for the variance.
I don't think that it does. It's
Okay.
shown on the plan. I don't think it matters. if you
Okay,
put
sir,
that in here.
just,
Because the plan is just as binding on them as what they signed here.
All right, if there are no further questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion and second.
I'll make a motion for approval of PDP 2024-29 with the amendment to item 8, condition of approval for Mr. Perkins.
I have a motion.
I'll second.
All right, I have a motion and a second for approval of Ms. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Canfield,
Yes.
Mr. Jesse,
Yes.
Mr. Vest,
Yes.
Mr. Stone,
Yes.
Mr. Garrett,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. If y'all come up here and see Mr. Perkins, you can get your paperwork signed. All right, the next item on the agenda is PSP 2024-37 Redwood Townhomes, a preliminary subdivision plat for 139 single-family attached lots and one stormwater management lot located at 1202 Old Oxford Road.
Great, thank you. This is PSP 2024-37, the preliminary subdivision plat for the Redwood Townhomes property located at 1202 Old Oxford Road. It is an R2 zone parcel with some agricultural to the north, B4 to the west, R2 to the east, and B2 to the south. The proposed development for the property that's actually underway right now is one-story townhome units, single-family attached style, at a density of 7.41 dwelling units per acre. The total acreage right now is 18.76 acres, and access is approved to go to Old Oxford Road via privately maintained roadway and easement. There are 5 variances associated with this one. I do want to identify that in the statistics of the staff report, it references 4. Unfortunately, I printed the wrong version, and then that one got copied a bunch of times, and it was on me. So there are 5 associated with this one. The one that was neglected, unfortunately, was the one to the 0 lot line variance, I believe. Maybe, let me check that one. No, it is the lot width one, excuse me. So we are familiar with this property. This has come before us previously.
This is part of the larger Finley properties that they had. In, I believe, 22, they were rezoned to the B4 in the front and the R2 in the back. And then, and probably in the last year or so, they received preliminary development plan approval to do one lot with several residential units on it, so 139 residential units. And now they are looking to individually subdivide these for potential individual sale. Previously, they were just going to like percent ownership with multiple agencies, but they ultimately determined that it would be more appropriate to subdivide them down that shared firewall, and resulted in this here. So this is identical to what we've seen previously with their development plan. Again, they're just right now looking to subdivide down those shared property lines. To do that type of, well, when they were doing the applications previously, they didn't need really many variances because it was all one parcel that was just having all these different setbacks. But now with the proposed lotting off, they do need several variances. The first of which is to the minimum lot size for these types of development. The smallest lots, which are typically the interior lots, have the minimum lot size for those is 3695 square feet, and the average lot is about 5879 square feet. The zone standard is 7,500 square feet, so they will need variances for that. With the way that this is all laid out, this isn't atypical. So central residential lot units on townhomes are often needing these types of accommodations. Cherry Blossom and other, do you want to ask them? Hey, Charlie, do you mind if you step out just so we can get a good crisp recording? You can both speak outside just so we can have a good recording, if you don't mind. Or step into the lunchroom. I hate to kind of do that, but it'll pick up pretty fast and we'll have some problems. Thank you. So they are looking for that minimum lot size variance request. Staff ultimately supports this. This is pretty typical that from what you see when you do these residential townhome developments for individual sale. So we're pretty used to them, and ultimately staff believes, or ultimately supports the request for a variance because it's typical and it's what we see. From here, there are several kind of additional variances that they will require. The first is to the front yard setbacks for residential lots to be measured from 20 feet from the edge of the private easement. All of these lots include private easements along their frontage for the road to go through. It is a private road system, so these are not planning on being adopted into the city road system. And so we're kind of dealing with that one. It's also not an atypical request for townhome developments off of private roads to include that and then have an additional setback accommodation requested. It would bring them closer to the street, but it would still leave sufficient space for driveway parking, and it would be outside of all of the sidewalks and roadways. So staff recommends favor of that one. Secondly, for the interior buildings, which is specifically the area kind of highlighted in the center of all of this area over here, so the larger kind of ones that are not adjoining external properties, those ones are requesting a rear yard setback variance from 25 feet to 20 feet. Also not super atypical. They are adjoining each other, and there is a water line easement or a water quality easement through them. Staff ultimately recommends in favor because it really doesn't alter the character of it, and it does allow for them to have sufficient space still, even with that variance approved. Third is for the lot width variance. Similar to the request for the middle units, they are going to have a smaller lot footprint. They're still going to have as much usable residential space to it, but it just is a little bit more narrow because of the nature of the style. And they're requesting a variance from 60 feet to 28 feet at the smallest. That's really just some of these central units in the middle interior lots, as well as some of the edge buildings. They have some interior lots that are rather narrow comparatively. Finally, the last request is to the side yard setbacks for the interior lots as well. So the typical standard for this zone is 7.5 feet. With them having a shared wall, 7.5 feet kind of defeats the purpose of that, makes them detached dwellings. And so when groups come in to do these attached products, they ultimately need variances. Staff also recommends approval of that variance, or in addition to the conditions of approval that I will get to in a moment, of on their final plat, when their buildings are built and everything like that, they have a home inspector come by and inspect those firewalls to make sure there's sufficient safe construction, and so that they can establish those along those boundaries. We'd hate to see someone have a insufficient firewall, and so we want to make sure our buildings are appropriate and safe. With all of that, the last kind of note is that this is just really going to function very similarly to a condo complex. Residents are responsible for their interior spaces of their units themselves, with all green spaces, roads, shared parking spaces, stormwater management infrastructure being managed by an HOA functioning type organization that would take care of all that stuff. Staff ultimately recommends approval of the preliminary subdivision plat, subject to the 5 variances I talked about previously, and then 10 conditions of approval. In the staff report, it does reference 9. The addition of the 10th condition was also meant to be put in. Unfortunately, again, I saved an old PDF, which was a major error on my part, and I do apologize. But condition 10 specifically states that final subdivision plats should include a certification from a licensed home inspector regarding the installation of firewalls in accordance with all applicable regulations and requirements. Again, just making sure they're safe so that we can put those boundaries and they can function as individual units. But again,
building inspection do that?
they typically do, but we do want
I
it.
can imagine that being let out to some independent home inspector.
I mean, we can amend that condition or just pull it in its entirety,
They
but
would do that as a matter of law. That's their responsibility.
yes.
I mean, I can't imagine doing that with a private home inspector.
Well, I'd like to see as much as you can leave in there as you can to hold the feet to the fire.
Oh,
I
yeah,
don't think
that's the building code. I mean,
Yeah.
they've
Yeah.
got to do that.
It's not gonna hurt to have that in there, though.
Well, it's just extra expense, and the person responsible for that, and I'm not sure, I mean, I don't want to disparage anyone, but the person better trained and experienced would be the building inspectors that do this on a regular basis.
I mean,
So it's an automatic requirement, it's not necessarily.
Yeah, that's not something that's elected, that's a basic requirement. You don't have this kind of arrangement unless you have firewalls and all that.
What made you include it in here versus normal?
with it being, like, oftentimes these aren't noted on the plats themselves, so the intent of adding the condition was to ensure that we have it noted on the plats that the lots are built to spec as they should be. So that's kind of the intention of it. If the advising attorney believes that that's not required or that it needs to be amended, I'll obviously defer it to you guys, but I think it's essential, and staff believes it's essential to have that note that it does need to be a safe
If the
construction.
commission wants, I mean, it is redundant, but if that's a redundancy the commission wants, then no, leave it on there. I'm just saying that is an automatic thing with building inspection. It's not like it's not gonna be inspected unless we have an outside building inspector.
Should it say through building inspection versus,
That's automatic, I mean, that's
yeah.
period.
I mean,
That-
if we're
they've
gonna
got-
leave it in there, it's not, if
that-
we're
that
gonna
they've
leave it
got-
in there, I mean,
We don't put.
it's not, I don't want it to be interpreted as an additional requirement. Oh, you've gotta go through building inspection and then have this done as well, right?
I'm just saying, we don't put building inspection requirements in there, they got that in the
understand.
building code.
I understand.
But beyond that, you can still put it in there if you feel like that's just a safeguard.
Elise, what's your opinion?
I mean, I put the condition in there, so I think that it's a potential benefit to have it just noted that it is, even a note may be sufficient, just saying like, it is built to firewall spec, would be a benefit in my professional opinion, because there can be a question, and it's good to have it noted on a plat.
And this could be fulfilled just through the regular building inspection.
And as they go through their various stages of inspections, yeah, and that's part of it.
So, I mean, if you ultimately.
We can get it further defined in a minute here.
Okay.
Go ahead.
That's what I'm saying.
Here's another.
Anything else for Elise?
Are you
Did
seeing
we do
all
any
these
kind of
lot
traffic
size
study?
reductions?
I know we
About 50%.
previously
I believe there was one performed at the zone change request. I can see in our records for the previous files that I brought with me, and the applicant's engineer is here, so they could probably speak to it.
And when we approved that zone change, it was to have this many units on this size,
I believe so, yes.
and the
But
lots
they
are
were
just,
all gonna be owned by one person.
Yeah, they reconfigured.
That was the original,
They're just breaking it up for individual sale if needed.
yeah.
but the same amount of acres are being taken for the same amount of houses or units.
Right.
I believe so,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, there was a traffic study. There are great improvements to Old Oxford Road that are shown part of the development plan that will have to be constructed as part of this, so that was all part of the initial final development plan.
And this road that's private, do they have plans to, down the road, to make that a city road or
Not the interior streets.
not the interior?
It'll be a public, there's commercial area up front. It'll be a public street that comes back in T's, and commercial lots come off of that, and then everything interior is private, so.
Is that uncommon within city limits of Georgetown, or is this something that you all do routinely as far as the private?
It is in our regulations. They can do public, or they could choose to do private. It allows for a little bit lesser setbacks and things like that. They still have to be built to a public standard as far as pavement goes and all that, but they can be closer. You don't have that big right-of-way, 50-foot right-of-way.
But the
So
city
the-
has no obligation and no expense involved in, with the streets, is what you're saying? City of
They,
Georgetown.
The city
they
won't.
will sign, there will be a certification, there's a certification on the final development plan, and there'll be on this plat that these are private. We accept maintenance of these and will not request the city to take them over unless,
So development like the Mark across from Kroger, are those private streets in the apartment?
there's a major public street going down that's going to the single-family residential, but the interior apartment streets are all private. They
Okay.
have parking lots off of them, things like that.
That'd be the same situation here. Yeah,
Similar, yeah.
yeah, okay. Any other questions for staff?
Just a similar one to that is the area of the townhomes in Kingwood. They have private streets. They all have
Right.
a half misnomer, and they have that same thing.
Okay.
They're not.
And were there, I'm sorry, I have still one more question. Were there improvements to Old Oxford and the connector with the road? I was not here when that zone changed, so I'm just trying to get up to speed.
Not to Connector at this time. Connector has a large project that's gonna change all that in the area. So, what they will do will go down to Connector, but it's not doing anything to
To
Connector.
connector, right, but it's Old Oxford.
Yes.
Will that start before construction starts?
Any idea where they're at in that
Yeah,
Connector
and
Road? As I know, that's what project one on their list was, is that right? Was Connector Road was number one on their list? Any idea where that's at?
Yes, we have design plans in our office that are still preliminary, but they've got the majority of the design done. You could come by and get an exhibit of those if you want to look at it.
Yeah.
They have not started, they're still calling them preliminary, they have not started any right-of-way acquisition for the project. They are calling the schedule mid-2026, that they may get started on that, but that's, without right-of-way, that's the best they can tell us now.
Now, is Dan Cummings still planning on going forward and helping speed up their section of that roadway?
They are still
At their own
moving.
expense?
They're moving dirt out there right
Yeah,
now.
I
They have
saw
an early
that.
grading permit. It is my understanding they're still planning on moving forward, but we don't have final plans. They don't have final plans approved yet.
But they don't plan on waiting for the state, is that correct? They're gonna put that in themselves?
I don't think so, but, I mean, they could change their mind. But we are working towards final approval, it seems like. So.
Okay. Would the owner representative, builder, like to say anything? Come on up.
Now, you are gonna tell the truth no matter what.
I will tell the truth no matter what. didn't get here in time for the swear-in. But I'm Doug Charles. I'm the owner-developer of the 18 acres back in the back. And this project, you know, really only the change is there's a couple of things. We made it clear when we went originally to get this plan approved that we wanted, that we intended to make each one of these lots individual at some time, but there was, at that point, we had underground detention, and there was no surface ponds or anything, and the staff was a little concerned about maintenance on those in perpetuity, so we said, hey, let's make this a lot easier. So we actually reduced our density from 142 to 139, and we've since put a detention pond in there. It's been installed. So, you know, the whole spirit of this request is just to simply, we have, there's 3 individuals, if you will, that are purchasing these, and they just want some flexibility instead of having to create one sale down the road. Some of them have 1031, you know, tax exchange situations. So they want the flexibility to be able to, at some point, they're going to keep those. We have an HOA in place that will ensure the community. Right now, it's all going to be rentals, but at some point in time, if they want to sell 40 of them or 30 of them, they just want this flexibility, and this is really the only way to do that versus kind of limit your buyer pool if you say you buy 139 or you buy none, you know. So these guys wanted the individual deal so they could do that, and that's the whole spirit of this thing. We haven't changed anything with respect to, you know, and as far as the dividing wall in between, you know, obviously I agree with Charlie in the sense that that is a building inspection requirement that would be there if we weren't requesting this individual lot line. It's the same. It has to happen anyways. You know, you have to have a firewall, whether it's a rental or a sale or a divided lot. That standard doesn't change. So, but besides that, you know, that's the whole reason we're just doing this. We're not changing anything. We're still doing everything just like we had. In fact, our density has actually been reduced to be able to, you know, the staff was a little, am I speaking correctly? Van, you remember all this about the, so you know, that's all this is about, but I'm happy to answer any other questions that y'all may have.
What would your timeline be on start to finish on a project like this?
Well, we're 70% done with the infrastructure part of it.
Okay.
You know, and another thing you're talking about that I will say that changed some of the complexion of this whole project, and this thing's been in the percolator for 3 years now, but when we had some knowledge that the state was going to look at a extensive study on Connector Road, we had already had our plans done. But when we found that out, even though no one knows when the funding is going to happen, but we felt confident enough in the plans that they submitted to us that we needed to be proactive and move our entrance east, if you will, so it would accommodate the roundabout that they're proposed to put in there, which would, you know, make it better for traffic flow and allow our folks to be able to turn left out of there, you know, and give us more room. It didn't leave us with the most marketable remainder, because splitting the lot would have been better as far as the commercialability of that other lot, but we just knew for the good of the deal it was really the best thing to do. So we're just trying to get a little bit ahead of that. Whether it happens or it doesn't happen, we're positioned for it when it does.
Thank you.
Joe, turn around and look at that map. Where's your all's road? You come out on Old Oxford or Connect?
We come out on Old Oxford, it's just a little, this road, it's been there forever.
Yeah.
It's probably right up here, Charlie.
Okay.
Right up there. We moved it that way.
All right.
Yeah. We have, just more of the surprises of developing. When we moved the road up, it created a conflict with Columbia Gas's main line in there. So we got that $175,000 surprise 2 weeks ago that we've got to move the gas line and eliminate that conflict, and we got to do the same thing with the water line, but, that's just part of it, so.
Will you all connect in with Rocky Creek at all?
No.
Okay, be no connection in there?
No, not at all.
Okay. Let's talk about the firewall a minute here.
Yeah, okay.
As an old masonry guy, I'm interested in those. What type of firewall will you use?
Well, I don't, where my role is that I bought the property, I develop it, and then I sell it to a group of guys that I've done several deals with. Here's what I do know.
You've built before, though.
Oh, I've built plenty, yeah.
Yeah.
It is whatever the code calls for with respect to the retardant and the burn hours and all those things. Charlie's all I can tell you. I don't know the exact material or the width or any of that stuff.
So you're saying it sounds like what you're saying is that it's basically double width drywall with a retardant on there instead of masonry.
That's what it used to be, I don't know.
That's what it still is.
Yeah.
There's different products that have the combustibility or, meet all the codes that people have.
Yeah.
It's no different really than any other townhome that is done or in Lexington or anywhere else. I mean, pretty much, they all have the same standards as far as that goes.
And it goes all the way up to the roof?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right.
And by the way, one other thing that I wanted to mention, that just to give you guys a little insight on this, is one of the unique things about these is that all of these have 2-car attached garages. So, that eliminates, so much parking, people who can park in their garages and in the driveways.
What is the entrance gonna look like? Can you just tell me for my lack of knowledge about this?
Well, there is, maybe, I can tell you, hey, Ben, I'm gonna defer to you a little bit. I know there's a turning lane. We have to make improvements to Old Oxford. There's a turning lane, there's what else are we doing over there, Ben? Do you remember?
You're gonna have, coming out of the entrance.
Whatever Ben told us we were going to do is what we're doing. Y'all told us we were going.
I guess the
I'm good.
So their entrance to this place is somewhere right in here. They've got a straight road that comes in, ties into Old Oxford somewhere in this area. They're gonna widen Old Oxford almost a complete width of what it is now, so they can there's a center turn lane, there'll be a through lane. Coming out, they will have a lane in, they'll have a lane to go right. I'm gonna poke somebody now. And a lane to go left, lane to go right at their entrance. So it'll be like a 36 foot width where they're coming in. So is that kind of what you're asking?
That answers my question. So if you're at 70% infrastructure, when will that work begin?
It has begun already.
It has already started, the widening of Old Oxford.
Not the one, they've
Just
cleaned
the-
off the banks.
Cleared.
They actually called me today. They want a meeting out there to start pulling more of it out. They've got to work with Columbia Gas as well. They just can't start ripping all that material out with Columbia Gas in the way. So they've got to get that relocated and lowered. I didn't see Columbia Gas's plan yet, so I don't.
Are we even approved?
So
Yeah, that answers my question. Thanks.
Understanding it's a requirement anyway, Doug, are you comfortable with the way 10 is written? Condition of approval.
I know the spirit, but I don't know the purpose of it.
let me.
For a home, independent homes person, it's just.
We see the firewall certificate on plats when they come in, generally when there's an old duplex or something built on one lot. and they come in later and say, oh, we want to split it down the middle now. Building inspection doesn't have the records, may not know what's there, so generally a private inspector is hired to verify that a firewall exists in the location they want to split, and they sign off and certify on the plat. For multifamily, when they're doing duplexes up front and they're splitting, showing the lot splits, Haddix is doing some of these, there are other multifamily developments, that certificate is not on the plat or anything. They don't get extra. It's part of what building inspection does. It's part of the process. They coming in and showing 2 residences, they have to have that, they have to have the firewall in between them. So, yes, we do see it on certain cases when they come in as an afterthought. In this case, the planning is up front. When they turn in building plans, they're gonna show 6 units all touching each other. So there's no question at that point when they get the building permit, so. That condition doesn't mean anything to me. We won't be inspecting anything, and we would probably not ever be involved with that process because it is a building inspection thing.
Right. So it doesn't need to be there. If it is there, it doesn't necessarily have to be, the way I interpret it, at least what I read, was it had to be a separate professional certified licensed building inspector versus our own building inspection doing it, right? Am I misunderstanding it?
I don't know what your intent was. That changed from the previous.
The building inspector does
Do it, but the way it reads, it
Yes.
makes it appear as though you have to
Well,
hire
it
some
doesn't.
external.
The way it reads, it doesn't matter, the building inspector will still sign off.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's essentially, the intent of it was to just have building inspection give a blessing on it, saying
Okay.
that it was built correctly. If building inspection staff are certified home inspectors by the standards of
Right.
being their position, then that would satisfy that thing and they could use public. It wasn't intended to be only private people, you have to hire a
Okay,
third party.
that's the way I interpreted it.
The
so.
intent was to be, as long as someone who can inspect homes gives it a blessing and writes down on the thing that everything's built properly on the plat,
So we could say
satisfied.
with building inspector
Yeah, like,
blessing, but essentially.
yeah, like just
right?
building inspector.
That's already the law.
Certified.
Yeah.
But if some people
Yeah,
feel more comfortable
so-
having it in
Plans,
there,
that's gonna
still
be
what has to
built
happen,
into the
but.
inspection.
Yeah, and for that purpose, it may be just worthwhile just to pull that
Okay.
condition. It was an ad that I made a comment about at workshop just because I wanted to make sure we identified it, to make sure that we're approving quality constructions and everything,
And I appreciate you
no
doing
question
that.
of that, yeah.
The intent
I have
was
no
there.
question of the quality of construction, but the intent was just to always just kind of be like,
Yeah.
these have to have firewalls, that type of thing.
Yeah.
I have a question for you, at least while you're up there, if you don't mind,
Mm-hmm.
about all these variances with the lot sizes.
Yes.
From 7,500 square feet to 3,695 square feet. Now, is that for all the different townhome lots where they sit, or just a certain percentage?
The areas that are of that size are those interior units, but it does technically qualify for all of the units that are shown right now. But the intent is just for those interior ones.
And how many interior units are there?
I think there's, I don't know, 20 buildings, thereabouts. We'll say 20 buildings, so like 2 ends, 5 to 10 in the middle. No, not 5 to 10 in the middle. 3 to like 6 to 7 in the middle. So I would say probably like 80% of the units are an interior unit, but some of those units are larger than others. There are certain locations where they are rather narrow, such as in the bottom corner lot that, I unfortunately can't get the clicker to work with me. But there's some areas where they just are smaller or shown as smaller units in comparison to the other ones. So it was intended for those ones, but technically it's all of the lots.
Then a question about number 5, and then a final question about all the lot setbacks. Where it says side yard setback for central townhome units from 7.5 feet to 0 feet.
Yes.
How often do this comes before here, where we have a 0 feet setback line?
Rather regularly. I mean, the Amic homes that Haddix is building and Cherry Blossom, those types of folks get it. They either get it now or they have to get it from the Board of Adjustment at a later date. And in our opinion, it's more effective to do it when they're doing the actual platting, so they don't have to go through another board review process. So I would say it's rather common.
Yeah, be next.
Yeah, so you share that wall.
Yeah.
And then I believe you said you had one more.
No, that was just in general.
Okay.
I'd like to see that, not here, but sometime I want to see the policy of what we officially have for setbacks for all these lots, but that's not.
Yeah, we can
Yeah, I
sit
just
down
want-
and
I just
talk
wanna
about
see
those
it.
ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, unless they request it, the standard setback in this zone is 7.5 feet, and then 25 if it's a multifamily, so 3 or greater lots. So if they want to be single-family attached, yeah, they request that 0 lot line. Anything else?
Any other questions? All right. I will take a motion. If someone so moves.
I'll make a motion for approval of PSB 2024-37.
I have a motion. Second.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Ms. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Vest,
Yes.
Mr. Stone,
Yes.
Mr. Garrett,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Canfield,
Yes.
Mr. Jesse,
No.
and the chair votes yes. All right. If you'll come see Mr. Perkins. All right, then we've got a couple of administrative items that we need to.
Okay, Lisa.
So we have 2 items in other business, the first of which is Red is at the end of his 6-month probationary period, so I do need a motion and second to allow him to be considered full non-probationary status. He's not a probie, he's the one level up from that one, but we do need that, we need to affirm him as full-time staff, or say, sorry, don't show up tomorrow.
I'll make a motion that we do that. Is that simple enough?
Yes, sir.
Full time.
Make a motion by Mr. Jesse
I'll second it.
and second by Mr. Smith to promote Mr. Shirley to a full-time status. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Unanimously.
One of us should have said no just for fun.
I wouldn't have heard you.
Mark threatened that when I first did it. He's like, I'm voting no. I was like, you will not. I moved here. I signed a year-long lease. I was very upset with that one for a moment, but that's okay. Our second item is, we've discussed it with the executive committee several times, and we did receive some public comment who are here, to discuss the, October 10th meeting in general. So at this time, we have 13 new filings, so 13 uniquely identified numbers. Some of these uniquely identified numbers are doubled up, so there's like 4 sites where there's 2 numbers assigned because it's a subdivision plat and a development plan at the same time. We also have 2 postponed items that we referenced at the beginning of the meeting that are also expected to be heard at the October 10th meeting. So we are having a very heavy, or comparatively heavy, agenda before the board in our October meeting, so please show up, first of all. Second of all, some of these items we have received a lot of public comment about. And so we've discussed before the potential of finding an alternative location that can potentially hold all of these people that are projected to come. Of course, a lot of folks will say they will attend meetings, and then we come in and we're all ready for everything and we set up all the overflow stuff and we don't have that much attendance, and sometimes we don't set up for overflow stuff and there's a ton of folks here. So we talked about it at the board and at the executive committee last month and this month, just kind of, what are you guys thinking about? What's the kind of conversation? And essentially just kind of wanted to open that up with some, we have if you guys are find it appropriate, we may collect public comment on that one. I believe, is that the right strategy for this?
Oh, you can do that.
Yeah, so if you would like to entertain public comment regarding this, we do have
Okay.
some folks here that would like to speak on that matter.
Okay, yeah, we'll take some public comments, but we don't want a preaching session.
I'll save that for Sunday.
Before he starts, just so that you don't, this probably won't surprise you. I've had more phone calls and more people stop me about this development than anything we've ever done.
Development I'm talking about.
The RV, is that October's meeting is what you're talking about?
That is their projected date, that's what they requested postponed it to, and at this time, we are still operating that they will be heard in October. Things may change between now and then, so they have up until the corrections deadline to essentially give me confirmation if they're going to be heard still. They are at the end of their kind of postponement thing, so that they ultimately made the determination to request postponement again, it in effect is treated as a withdrawal, and then they would have to reapply and then restart the process again, which includes new
They've had
signs.
3 postponements already?
Yeah, they filed in June for the
Oh,
July
okay, I didn't
meeting,
realize.
August and September, so that's 3.
So there just seems to be, do what you want, but there seems to be a lot of questions out there from people.
And
so.
yes, we have entertained many questions and received multiple emails about it. They kind of follow a similar kind of conversation point on that one, which it's obviously we're not collecting public comment, so I'm not going to talk about that part.
Okay, well, let's,
But I think, I'm glad to hear you say you're planning on trying to accommodate people, which we should. I don't think this is gonna be a big enough space.
Yes, we've set up the overflow space with the stream, and we also have the additional chairs brought in, so we can talk about that more if that's.
Which accommodated what we have for the comprehensive plan.
Yes, it did. People, I believe were standing, some were standing in that one, but as people left with their plans, when the ones they cared about left, it did kind of, everyone kind of migrated into this space and were able to kind of fit comfortably.
What if like a community came in all wearing the same kind of shirts? Would they be ready to read?
They have What,
Don't tempt me, I'm all wearing blue again.
what did you say the IT expense was related to moving it? Because that was really, I think, part of our discussion as an executive committee is there would be expense associated with it.
There would be one in conversation with Devin when they were doing the relocation to the library. I believe they stated that it was about $3,000 to have them bring in the additional equipment. I would like to note that we are a little bit more tech reliant because we have the multiple screens and we have 3 cameras on you guys, 1 camera on me, and 10 microphones, well, 11 microphones. So that does increase the cost more. So I would anticipate between $3,000 and $5,000 or $6,000. So that is a large cost that we would have to pay and everything like that. So that is a component of it. There may be private contractors that entertain and they may be willing to do it for differently, but we have a standing contract with Studio 46, so they're kind of our guys that they're familiar with our preferences. So, but anyway, I will let you guys speak to that one. I'm gonna.
okay. Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Dick Murphy. My wife and I own Heronwood Farm, which is a boarding operation on Muir Lane and Midway Road, so it kind of confronts both of them.
Sir, could you spell the name of your farm again?
Heronwood, Heronwood.
Thank you.
It's a dressage and eventing boarding operation. And really the main reason I'm here tonight is because the notice for the rezoning that's going to be discussed in the October meeting ended up in front of my property, although it's not my property that's being rezoned, which caused huge confusion for me because I thought someone was trying to rezone my property.
You didn't get any phone calls, did you?
No, they haven't stopped. Yeah, so why are you rezoning your property, Dick? So that's what really brought all this about. So I have no complaints tonight, all right? So that should please you greatly. But I do have a concern, but before I get to the concern, I just wanted to make sure we're all singing from the same hymnal with regards to expectation. So I'm going to read from 61-820 statute. All meetings of all public agencies of this state and any committee or subcommittees thereof shall be held at specified times and places which are convenient to the public In considering locations for public meetings, the agency shall evaluate space requirements, seating capacity, and acoustics. In a related statute, 61-840, all agencies shall provide meeting room conditions, including adequate space, seating, and acoustics, which insofar as is feasible, allow effective public observations of the public meeting. And finally, the one that's probably the most important, 61-840 sub 5, any rule, resolution, regulation, ordinance, or other formal action of a public agency without substantial compliance with the requirements of KRS 61-820 shall be voidable by a court of competent jurisdiction. And we have lots of competent judges in Scott County, right? So that's not a problem. I just want to read that to make sure that you understand that I'm taking this very seriously and that we need to accommodate the folks that I anticipate are going to be here. And Mr. Jesse, I'm glad to hear that you're hearing a lot of complaints.
There is a lot of
concern.
There's nothing we can say to them, 'cause we don't know anything.
Yeah. So what the other point of awareness, I have a mailer that I'm planning to send out to over 1,700 people. Now, these are the 17, they represent the rural route delivery within about a 2-mile radius of where the proposed RV park is going. So it's the people that are most impacted by it. Primarily Scott County people. There is one rural route, by the way, that's shared with Midway and with Scott County. So there will be some Woodford County folks, but probably 85% of that 1,700 would be Scott County folks. Now, this flyer familiarizes people or refamiliarizes some of them with the proposal. But the thing that I want to draw your attention to, and by the way, I'll leave these over on the table so you can take them with you, is a list of concerns. They're not my personal concerns. Some of them I share, but I also am the administrator for a Facebook group that has currently about 250 very active participants, some of whom, Mr. Jesse, I'm sure, contacted you and maybe some of the other folks on the commission. These are their list of concerns because I ask, what are you concerned about? Protect our community, keep wide traffic off rural roads, save prime farmland.
Mr. Murphy?
Yeah. I'm
we
getting on
can
preaching,
read
all
all
right?
that.
I'm getting on preaching.
Yeah.
But anyway, the list is not my personal list.
Understand.
That's the point. So I'll leave this over there. So my request, and by the way, there's also a petition that is being voted on online, and that petition against the RV park is getting very close to 1,000 names, and they are right in that area as well. So just out of awareness, I believe you're going to have a very large group on October 10th. So my request is figure out a way to accommodate that group. Simple as that.
Thank you. 2 other people here, would you all have anything to say?
I'm with you.
Okay.
Just so you know, I know some of the folks.
Yeah.
But it will be a big group. When they had this over in Midway, if you guys know about that, I'm pretty sure they had it in, I think they had it in a gymnasium at Midway College to accommodate all the people over there. And there was a large group back in, I'll say 2022, it's been a while.
Okay.
So it's gonna happen. I mean, like Jesse said, it's gonna happen. And we're just trying to make sure there's the right forum basically for
Right.
all.
Thank you. Carolyn, do you have anything? You're just waiting now. All right. It sounds like, Charlie, the statute that Mr. Murphy quoted, I don't know if that is just for our regular meetings.
No, that's for any meeting.
That's for any meeting.
Any meeting we have reasonable basis to believe that there's gonna be double, then we need to provide for it.
Okay.
especially if it's gonna be something absurd like 1,700 or whatever. Oh, absolutely, that's our obligation.
Okay, so staff, we're charging you with, the commission also feels like there's gonna be a large crowd. So we need to find, an alternate location. You had mentioned, churches just because they have the audio equipment. I don't want to get into, a private location, you know, like a church.
How about all these schools that have all this new equipment?
Yeah, I would say the schools, Georgetown College, the extension office. I think it would be pushing it at the library. We've had some meetings up there that people are out in the halls down both ways. I don't think that would accommodate. I think a gym type setting, or large auditorium, would be much better. And, you know, if it's, you know, the cost is the cost, and it's part of doing business.
I bet Mr. Parker would try to accommodate the school superintendent's office if he could help.
Yeah, we
For the
can.
community.
The extension office won't handle that many.
The extension
The
office
extension
has
office.
already told us that they do not have
They
availability
don't
that
have
date.
availability.
So
date.
that one is off the
So
table,
that one's out.
unfortunately.
So, if we had a connection with the former school.
6 months ago we did.
Just to kick,
Do you want to?
this
Did
is
it at the
not
chapel
committal,
one time, remember?
obviously, but, you know, from
There's
my.
seats there, there's gymnasium, we're gonna have to.
From my experiences, obviously, and kind of thinking of the locality, if it were possible, maybe Great Crossings Auditorium. Of course, then that puts us on a stage, literally.
Yeah.
But they do have drop-down screens and things of that nature and all the tech. I hesitate to even ask about the new school. I don't know that we want to, you know, be the first in there for something like, yeah, they haven't had play yet. Let's not put that in there yet. You know, we don't need that drama there. We'll do it elsewhere.
We did it at the chapel one time.
Yeah.
We did it at Georgetown College.
And if we're talking schools, that would be the
Well, if
probably
you all would put
ideal.
that on the top of your request item then, and, I agree with you, and we could probably, you know, recruit, maybe the drama club or something to
Yeah.
help get set up the acoustics and lighting and all of that, and help them along their ways.
I'm not quite there yet. I've still got a year to go, but do any of y'all have any school-age kids or know when fall break is off the top of your head?
Fall break is the last week of September
It's the first week of October.
and first week of October.
Okay, but not continuing till the 10th, okay. I was wondering if, but
They
being
were-
6 PM and October 10th is before basketball starts.
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
call. I'll call, I'll get in touch with DT Wells tomorrow.
September 30th through October 4th.
Okay, we're just
During the
outside
week
that window
there
then.
is fall break.
Okay.
And I'm sure the chairman of the school board would try to help you too.
I mean,
You're
within their
sure
limited
that-
availability, I mean, it's just like anybody,
For the
you know.
community.
And there will, and
I don't
just,
think it's high on their priority.
just for the board's knowledge as well, there will be, with the school system rental, there will be costs associated with that outside of, say, Studio 46.
Right.
It's hourly rate.
Yeah, gotcha. And we might just have to pass that all along to the farms along Midway Road there.
You can. We'll use your mailing list. We'll invoice your mailing list.
What was your mailing
That's
address
just
again there,
$2
Dick?
a person. You know, it's 1,700 people, $2 a person, nothing.
There you go, we'll just charge admission to get in.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Counselor at the front, Tamar.
Yeah, all right. Yes, sir.
Can we make this somewhat of an educational opportunity for kids here in the school system to understand what the county and you folks do? I mean,
Yeah.
I realize this is a big issue for, especially for people like us involved, but the children and the kids going to high school and stuff need to understand what you guys do on a regular basis. And it's a great opportunity for you to gymnasium. I mean, I know with these
it's a big issue for the entire community.
Yeah.
No. To be fair, the public schools here aren't necessarily set up AV-wise in the gyms for that. Trust me, you don't want to do it in a gym.
They just set up play classes for graduation.
They don't do graduations indoors. They
Yeah.
do them on the football field.
They do them on the football field
Set up
unless it's
many of them.
raining.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions, comments
Thank you
for
very
staff?
Thank you all.
Thank
Appreciate
you
it.
all. Brett, congratulations.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
And, we're over. And next month, we will have a, new director on board to lead us through. It's gonna be.
He's just gonna be watching. I believe it. He's watching everyone just.
What a great first meeting.
He's debating if it's worth it or it's
Yeah, he's gonna put off his start date to the 1st of November.
You better call the popo, have the popo out there.
We can entertain it. If we think it's appropriate, and want to pay the additional thing, we can maybe see the SRO or someone would come. I will do what I can to find out, what we can get in the time period that we have. If I don't get the Red Cross High School, Scott County New High School, or the old high school, or Georgetown College, we have to essentially be like, we might just have to bite that one, unless we think that middle schools have an appropriately sized facility that can manage.
Well, the middle school is the old high school.
Well, no, I'm talking about like, Royal Spring or.
That auditorium.
Yeah, auditorium.
Yeah, there you go, that's it.
That
That
place.
one in the middle school now.
Yeah.